toe. I was contemplating my toes this morning, and, well, I know this will interest you. The big toe on my right foot is almost back to normal. It has taken nearly a full year for the blackened toenail to grow out and be replaced by a shiny pink new nail. My big toe, aside from a slightly flattened shape, looks every bit as good as its associates. The piggy who stayed home, the piggy who had roast beef, the piggy who had none, and the piggy who went wee, wee, wee all the way home. Well, actually, that last little piggy didn't say anything. It was I who went wee, wee, wee all the way home. So I flattened the toe during my annual major nerve-wracking spring building project. My wife, Bun, likes to claim I start off pursuing my annual nerve-wracking spring building project and end up with it pursuing me. Okay, sure, there was the project last year, the one recorded in the blackened nail of my big toe, but that's certainly the exception. If you don't count my pouring the concrete walk, May 1972, putting a new porch on the cabin, May 1981, installing a deer fence around the garden, May 1985, and building a cedar strip canoe, May 1986 to yes, well. Even though those building projects may have pursued me in the end, they never actually caught me. If you can't escape from one of your own building projects, don't call yourself a handyman. Time I got started building a new dock, I said to Bun over breakfast one morning last June. Got to get it done before the river starts to rise. If I wait any longer, I'll have to wear scuba gear. I'd better order the scuba gear right away, Bun said. I was only kidding. It'll be another 3 weeks before the river starts coming up. I'll have this dock done long before then. 1 air tank or 2. I flew into action right after breakfast. I called my friend Mike, a logger, and asked him if he could get me 12 cedar poles to use for pilings. No problem, he said, and the very next morning he hauled in the poles, each one 12 feet long and about 8 inches in diameter. Mike casually tossed them off the back of his pickup truck and into my driveway. I was pleased to see they were so light, because that would make them easy for me to carry down to the dock site. I invited Mike in for a cup of coffee. Watch your step, I told him as we headed for the house. You really should have a concrete walk put in, Mike said. This is a concrete walk, I said. Poured it myself back in '72. I see, he said. I didn't know that. Yes, I did the whole walk all by myself. It's very interesting. Thanks. We got our coffee in some little round donut holes and brought them out to the porch. Mike dropped one of the donut holes, and before he could pick it up, it rolled across the porch and off the edge. I built the porch to be self-cleaning, I said. That's why it slants the way it does. Good idea, Mike said. By the way, I was wondering why you have that deer penned up in your garden. Oh, he's not penned up, I said. He comes and goes through that fence as he pleases. That's why we call it a deer fence. Oh, I thought for a moment it was a cage of some sort, like that one over there. A pretty nice cage. Cedar strip canoe. Oh, of course. I really have to get my eyes checked. Can't see worth a darn anymore. So, who are you having build this dock for you? Nobody. Building it myself. This may surprise you, Mike, but I'm pretty handy with tools. After Mike left, I went down to the riverbank and marked out a nice big rectangle and drove in a stake to mark the position of each of the 12 pilings. I hate a puny dock. All my neighbors have little, insignificant docks. This one would be big enough to hold square dances on. My first effort at digging a piling hole in loose rock didn't turn out well. The sides kept caving in, and by the time I had it deep enough, the hole was the size of a bomb crater. I then went up to haul the first pole down from the driveway, and discovered that dew had soaked into it and tripled its weight since Mike had tossed it off the truck. Still, I wrestled it up onto my right shoulder, and by running sideways at a precarious tilt, managed to get the pole down to the hole before I toppled over. After the piling was set and solidly tamped in, a process that took scarcely more than 6 hours, do you realize how much gravel needs to be shoveled to fill a bomb crater? I came to a sudden realization. My neighbors might be offended if I built a dock twice the size of theirs. They would think I was showing off, maybe even trying to embarrass them. It'd be much more neighborly on my part if I built a dock with only 8 pilings. After I had set 3 pilings, it became clear to me that the neighbors would be even more appreciative if my dock were actually smaller than theirs. 6 pilings would be plenty. 4 would serve. It was as I prepared to set the final piling that the incident of the big toe occurred. Hugging the pole vertically to my chest, I staggered to the edge of the excavation, at which moment gravel under my feet caved in. I shot to the bottom of the hole, as did the piling, which might have split in two from impact had it not been cushioned by my big toe. Bun came running out of the house. "I just saw a log fly by the window," she yelled. "What on earth is going on out here?" Nothing," I growled. "Something is," she said. "First the log flies by the window, and then I hear something go wee, wee, wee." Much to everyone's surprise, I had the dock finished before the river came up. It is a modest dock, too small for square dances, but plenty big enough for tap dancing. While I was contemplating my toes this morning, it occurred to me that people in general seem to find mashing a toe amusing, so long as it isn't their toe. I don't recall receiving a bit of sympathy for flattening my toe into approximately the size and shape of a ping-pong paddle. In fact, my so-called friends and associates burst into loud guffaws upon hearing I had dropped a 300-pound log on it. Disgusting. But I, alas, am no better than they. I had been installing a simple built-in cabinet in my upstairs office. One thing led to another, and pretty soon a wall had to be replaced, along with a few odds and ends related to the structural supports. Bun, fearing that the upstairs office might soon be in the downstairs living room, insisted that I bring in a carpenter. She then took to bed with a sick headache. Women simply don't have the nerves for watching a home handyman ply his craft. So I let my bandaged fingers do some walking through the yellow pages and found a carpenter by the name of Big Earl. I called him. "Your office is on the 2nd floor, he said. "At the moment," I said, "I would appreciate it if you could get out here as soon as possible." "That means I'll have to carry lumber upstairs. The problem is, mister, I mashed my big toe the other day, and it's all swole up something awful and hurts like the very dickens." I managed to ease the pain in Big Earl's toe with the offer to apply large amounts of cash to the palm of his hand. Scarcely had I hung up the phone than Big Earl knocked at my door. With one foot in a boot and the other in a loose-fitting slipper, he hobbled into the kitchen, wincing sufficiently at every step that I suspected an even greater application of cash to palm might be needed to soothe his suffering. Big Earl checked out the situation in the office and said the first order of business would be to haul some lumber up the stairs. I explained that we would have to be quiet because my wife was in bed with a sick headache. Big Earl said he would take 11 sick headaches in exchange for a mashed toe. As we were carrying a sheet of 3/4-inch plywood up the stairs, each of us grasping an end, I heard a slight bump. Not realizing that Big Earl had thumped his sore toe on the top step, I thought for a moment he had burst out in a crude attempt at yodeling. I tried to shush him, fearing he would disturb Bun. Distracted by what, up to that moment, he considered to be a major pain in his toe, Big Earl allowed the sheet of plywood to slip from his fingers. It is common knowledge among handymen that a sore toe acts as a magnet to any heavy object dropped within 20 feet of it. So, even though Big Earl had 9 other perfectly good toes for the corner of the plywood to land on, the heavy sheet zeroed in and landed with a spongy thud on the previously injured toe. Big Earl shot straight into the air. By the time he came down, he had flung off the slipper, grabbed up the foot containing the damaged party, and clutched it to his midsection. No sooner had he landed than he bounded off in a series of sprightly one-legged hops, all the more remarkable for a man of his size and age. In mere seconds he explored all the rooms on the second floor and had started retracing his route. At one point he hopped in and out of the bedroom where Bun was lying down with a cold cloth on her head. A moment later she looked out into the hall. But by then, Big Earl had vanished into the office. "I must be having a migraine," she mumbled, and went back to bed. Each time Big Earl hopped by me, I tried to engage him in casual conversation, but he showed little interest. Indeed, he hadn't uttered a sound during the whole event, except for his aborted attempt at a yodel. Finally, he hopped down the stairs and out of the house. I followed along behind, carrying his slipper and trying to comfort him. Mashed toes do smart some, don't they, Big Earl? I wouldn't worry about it, though. I doubt your toe is broken. I mashed my big toe with a 300-pound piling last spring. Boy, just be glad it was only a sheet of plywood that hit your toe. You take a 300-pound piling, now that hurts. Uncomforted, Big Earl hopped into his pickup and drove off without saying a word. He must have been nearly a half-mile away when I heard him make his first utterance. Wee, 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 wee. Now there was something to which I could relate. As I say, there is something about toes that is inherently amusing. It is not unusual for a normally sensitive and sympathetic person like myself to burst out in maniacally wild laughter at the mere thought of somebody else bashing a toe. So, I am happy to report that with considerable difficulty, I remained grimly solemn during and for days after the event, an attitude I achieved by refusing to think about the madly hopping Big Earl. If someone so much as mentioned the word toe or hop, my lips would quiver into a smile, but I would fight off the smile and return to strained solemnity. I think it totally reprehensible to find amusement in the suffering of another human being, even when it concerns only a big toe. To do so clearly reveals a major flaw in one's character, particularly when one feels an uncontrollable urge to burst into crazed laughter every time he recalls the incident. The trick, of course, is simply not to recall the incident. Unfortunately, it was while I was seated in a crowded movie theater the following week that the image of the hopping Big Earl suddenly and without warning leaped vividly into my head. I only wish it hadn't occurred during the scene in which the poor little blind girl learns that her faithful seeing-eye dog, Rex, has just been flattened by a steamroller.